Hey everybody, welcome to Norma's Quilt Studio. Today we're going to talk about how to make easy sew pillowcases. So let's get started. So I'm really excited to show you how to make pillowcases. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to talk about the material that you need, and you need 3 pieces of material. Alrighty, so here's the fabric we need. We need a piece of fabric that's 27 wide by 42. This is your main pillowcase piece. So usually you can buy a 36-inch 1-yard piece of fabric and cut it. And what I'm going to do is make this my cuff. They call this the cuff part. And it's 9 inches by 42. So we have that piece is number 1. And the second piece we have actually a 2.5 by 42. And what we do is we fold that in half and we put the raw edge right next to the cuff. And that is fabric number 2. So we're going to lay the cuff on the table and put the fabric right side up, and then we put our accent piece folded in half towards the top of the cuff. Now we're going to add the main fabric, which is our 3rd piece of fabric, and it is the 27 by 42, and we're going to put it face down. And it's going to face down on top of everything right across here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it up like an accordion. And so we're going to fold it up here inside the cuff. And we get it all folded inside the cuff like that. And then we're going to take our cuff, and this was the cuff, so don't get confused because they're both the same fabric. And we're going to take that 9-inch piece of cuff and fold it over. And now we're going to pin it all the way across, and we're going to go sew that. We only need 3 seams to make this pillowcase. So let's go ahead and pin that, and I'm going to come back with that all pinned, and then we'll show you that. Alrighty, here we go. We have it all pinned. So keep in mind that when you use the pins, you're going to use a lot, because you're trying to put 5 pieces of fabric together in this little cuff, because the cuff is on the back and in the top, and we folded everything inside, so we have lots of layers to keep straight. And trust me, the more pins the better, because when you go sew, everything will lay very nice and flat for you. So let me go sew it and we'll come right back. Alrighty, here we go. We're at the sewing machine. We have all of our pins, and we're going to sew right along that edge. Our main focus is to get everything in and keep that nice and flat. All right, now we've got this part sewn. We did a 1/4 inch all the way down, all the length of our tube. I'm going to call this a tube. Sometimes they call this a hot dog pillowcase pattern because it's this long tube. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn that tube inside out. So what we're going to do is start taking everything out that was in the center of this. And this takes me a little bit of time sometimes. And you just keep pulling everything out from the center that's inside that tube. And we're just going to keep a yanking on it until we can get it all out. Now you guys are going to see how strong I am, right? We're just going to keep pulling it and pulling it and pulling it and pulling it until we get it out. And then once we get it out, then you'll see that we have a flat piece of fabric, and we've sewn our 3 pieces together. We have our cuff, we have our accent piece, and we have the main fabric. So now what we're going to do is go press it and press that real nice and flat, and then we're going to trim the right and left side to make sure they're nice and even, and then we're going to sew it together and make our pillowcase. Up next. Alrighty, now we have it pressed and this is all nice and flat. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to trim the right and left side, and I've already trimmed that side, so I'm going to trim this side, and you can see that it's a little wobbly, so you want to make sure that's nice and even so that you can sew that together. So I just took a little bit off, you can see. Alrighty, once we have it trimmed, we're going to put wrong sides together, and that may seem a little bit strange or maybe strange, but what we're going to do is we're going to sew now on the right side of our pillowcase. we're going to do what's called a French seam, and so we are going to sew a scant 1/4 inch along this line of the pillowcase and this line, which is actually our open edges of the pillowcase, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to put in a few pins, and it's called a scant 1/4 inch on this side, and you'll see in a little bit what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it inside out, and then I'm going to sew on the wrong side, and when we do that, we're going to do what's called a generous 1/4 inch seam. To me, what I'll say on that is you're just going to make the 1/4 inch bigger so that we can put this seam inside. But for now, we're going to do a scant 1/4 inch all the way around the open sides. So let's go do that. Alrighty, let's take a look. Here's our 1/4 inch seam all the way along here, and we turned it and we went all the way along here. So you can see it's on both sides. We got our 1/4 inch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn the pillowcase inside out. And when we turn it inside out, then we're going to have to do some pressing again and iron those seams down. So what's going to happen is, let me shake it out a bit. What's going to happen is these seams don't want to lay down very good. Well, it helps if you take the pins out, Norma. There's a pin in here. I can feel it. All right, there it is. Got it. So good note to self, right? Take all the pins out. Now, when you fold it down like that, this is where the seam is. It kind of puffs up, right? It's kind of misbehaving. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to go to the ironing station and press that down so those seams are inside and lay real flat, because we're going to come along here and we're going to sew a larger seam, what we call a generous 1/4 inch along here and along the bottom. And so this is our French seam, and we want it to be larger than the seam inside now. So now what we've done is we have put the right sides together and sewn our 1/4 inch, and it's not just a regular 1/4 inch, it's a generous 1/4 inch, and I am going to zoom in and show you a picture of how. So let's go ahead and turn it inside out, and let's look at our pillowcase. Yay, we are all done. I am going to shake it out so we can show you how pretty that pillowcase looks. And it's got that French seam inside of it, so it's really cool. So it'll lay really flat. So the problem you'll have, which I don't see any problems with this one, but the problem you'll have sometimes is you'll find that if you didn't do the bigger 1/4 inch, that you'll see a seam over here that didn't get hidden. So you're trying to hide those inside your pillowcase. So there it is. There's your pillowcase all done. Cuff, accent piece, and the main pillowcase. And this one is for my grandson, Kobe, and now we can say good night. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have lots of fun making more pillowcases. This is Norma Stark again from Norma Jean Quilts. My website is njbestquilts.com. You can find me on my YouTube or my webpage, and I think my webpage will link you to my YouTube as well. So I hope that you enjoyed the class today and make lots of pillowcases.